So as I've said a couple of times today, I was clearly wrong about the CPI headline reading. I feared it would be a 5.2 or 5.3. It came in at 4.9. So what we're going to do today is talk to Matt the Mortgage Guy, because again, CPI headline at 4.9 means we have 10 months of negative readings. I do think the next 4 months are rather layups to go lower. We have two large base effects. We have housing rolling over as far as inflation. So I think there's at least a decent chance to be sub 4% by the September reading, which is August data. So this has to be good for mortgage rates. We have seen a crazy spread of 313 basis points. So, Mr. Matt, the Mortgage Guy, what's going on? What are you seeing in rates? What's Barry Habib saying? Are we going to get sub 6 by the end of the year?
Yeah, I think so. And you know, that's my opinion. For a lot of mortgage folks that follow Barry Habib or other mortgage folks that are just tracking CPI as kind of the main thing to track that's going to point interest rates down. One, it's heading down, and two, I think it's not doing too much too fast, which is something that I like. If it would have came in at 4.7, you know, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, you know, then they start talking about rate cuts towards the end of the year, and it's too much too fast, which again, people probably would get excited about a 5.5% interest rate. I'm not, because I know the 100 people I have pre-approved already competing against 8 and 10 offers. The last thing I want is more people fishing in the same pond with limited fish. There's only so many homes for sale. And so a lot of folks see this as the start of more good news with inflation. And like you said, a big part of this inflation number is shelter. If you look at, you know, the roller coaster, I think you talked about the roller coaster. We've got a couple good months that can't help but show shelter costs coming down, which is going to pull down that inflation number. Mortgage rates are going to follow inflation. And then the other thing you mentioned, 30-year fixed at roughly 6.5, the 10-year treasury at roughly 3.5, that 300 basis point spread, not natural, not normal. Once volatility calms down and that comes back down to 2%, all these things are forces that push mortgage interest rates down. I'm, you know, here saying, like I said last time, I just don't want them to come down too fast, too quick, right? Like too much, too fast would not be good. It would push demand. And so slow but steady, get us to 5.75, 5.875 by the end of 23. I'm cool with that. I just don't want 5.5% too much from now, which we won't get, right? Like this stuff happens slow, like most things in real estate, where the next reading is going to show, you know, inflation comes down a little bit more. It's positive towards rates. Just for, you know, reference for people, the 30-year fixed rate, like one day to the next, if you just look at Mortgage News Daily's number, 6.68 to 6.57. So the number comes in good. It helps mortgage rates 0.1% on the rate. You know, it's like, as I'm looking at it in real time, 28 basis points better, which people that follow your channel know that, you know, 30 to 40 basis points is about an eighth in interest rate. And so, yeah, slow and steady, downward pressure on rates, you know, nothing, you know, life changing, but we think this is the start of more inflation readings that are going down. And so I'm in the same camp as you, I believe, where I think a pause is almost certain.
Oh,
for the next Fed meeting.
No question.
Yeah.
100%.
And, you know, from there, we might disagree a little bit. I think they, you know, might crank sooner than you believe, but who knows?
But so define crank, you mean up or down?
I mean, going back the other direction, actually, you know,
so you see a cut this year, at least a cut this year.
I think there's at least a chance of a cut. I'm not saying yeah, but would you be surprised if there was a cut in 23?
Yes.
Okay. That's the only place I think we differ a little bit, where I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised. I think the Fed too just like does wacky stuff. that you're like, that doesn't make sense. That's not what I would do. If it's not what I would do, I think that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, the good thing about today's reading is this was the last number I was concerned about. Again, I've tried to be very clear in my channel. I thought this number could surprise to the high side. I was wrong. But I thought the next 4 readings are all going to be good. We had 2 base effects which roll off next in the next 2 months, which are both over a point. One is 1.2. The largest on record was last June at 1.2. That's going to roll off. We get a 0.4 replacing a 1.2. That's a 0.8 reduction, right? It's simple math. So I really think over the next 2 months, because there's such large base effects, we could be in the low 4s pretty easily. And then the following 2 months are going to be when the shelter inflation finally picks up steam, meeting to the downside. Because again, even in today's reading, shelter was 60 or 62% of the increase. So we get to a time where shelter inflation is not this behemoth. I think we're sub 4% by, it'll be the September report, but August data. I think we're sub 4%, and the Fed's winning. We have real rates at 2%, and then the question is, where's the job market, right? Where's the job market? Where's GDP? Those are different questions. But given that this reading was still negative 10 months in a row, I see sub 6% 30-year money by the end of the year. I think Barry Habib was saying we go to 5. Is Barry Habib still talking 5% 30-year money, or has he changed his opinion?
No, I think that's still the consensus, is that it's farther out than initially predicted, and it might be slower than initially predicted. But you look at some of the shelter numbers from August, September, October of 22. That like you said is going to cause some really good downward momentum in inflation over these next 3 or 4 readings. Which 6.5 today. I don't know if we get down a full percent on mortgage interest rate over the next 6 months. But I think that's what that camp is kind of calling for, is
Okay.
Low to mid 5s on a 30-year fixed rate mortgage
by the end of the year.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm definitely comfortable saying sub 6. I think sub 6 is probably a layup, just given where we are, given the spread, given 4 months of positive data. The big question is, at this point, I think inflation, they can claim, they won't, just be clear, they won't celebrate. But I do see the next 4 months being wind at their back so easier. This was the report that could have tripped them up. So I think it's a pause all year. And then I think the spread comes in because banks are at the terminal rate, then banks are competing for business. And I think the system takes over. And let's be clear. I think you said one thing that I totally agree with. We cannot have rates go sub 6% by, say, the end of June. That would be too fast. I don't want that, because if we get rates sub 6 by the end of June or in the next 6 weeks, it just unleashes demand. So where we have 100 people competing for 20 homes, then we're going to have 200 people competing for 25 homes, and it's going to be a complete mess. What do you think of that?
I agree 100%. And more I'm hearing people that, maybe the idea makes sense to people, but when I see it in practice and I talk to homeowners and real estate agents, just know that for every one person that you unlock a sale, because interest rates allow them to buy forward, you unlock 10 buyers.
Exactly.
So the fact that interest rates are going to unlock both, true statement, yes. Different degrees, also yes. So don't tell me that you want 4.5% interest rates because magically you're going to get 10 new sellers and 10 new buyers, because you won't. You'll get 20 new buyers and 2 new sellers, and we don't want that to be any more lopsided than it already is. I know that from practice, Mike. I don't know that from studying charts and, hyperbolating, if that's a word. I just think I heard that somewhere. It sounds good here.
Sounds good.
Spot. But I know that from talking to people and knowing consumer behavior, because I take an application and I talk to somebody. 5.5% through my conversations and my mortgage business has been something that's been a big inflection point for buyers.
Yeah.
they'll come to play. I can't say the same for sellers. And I think that like your survey or other people's kind of, survey of the market is that number is much lower to get someone to sell their $600,000 house and buy $1 million one.
Yeah. It's just, it's pretty crazy. So if somebody wanted to reach out, see what's what, see what they qualify for, how should they reach out to you?
They should go to greatmortgagebroker.com, fill out that form. We'll be in touch. We are more than happy to get you pre-approved, show you the scenarios that work for you. More and more, Mike, I'm talking to people that, have either talked to somebody that didn't advise them properly or advise them, incorrectly altogether. Sometimes no fault of their own. They just don't know what they don't know.
Sure.
There's a lot of nuance to mortgage. There's a reason you want to work with somebody who knows what they're talking about. So do yourself that favor. If you're looking to buy a home in 2023, go to greatmortgagebroker.com.
Yep, totally agree. Greatmortgagebroker.com. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Mike.